It's Britney, bitch.
It's Britney, bitch. Oh my god, that would be the dream, is to get Jennifer Coolidge on the podcast. Oh my god.
Oh god, could you imagine?
I've watched your content for years.
Oh wow.
Jennifer Coolidge. What an icon.
A true icon.
Hey gamers! I finally made it all the way through the. Okay, I'm back. Hey gamers, it's me. I'm going. Hey gamers, it's me, Jason. I finally made it all the way through the. There's another boss. Hey gamers, it's me, Jason. I am ready. I am prepared, and I'm gonna kill this boss. Let's do this.
And I'm proof that death can be fun. It's me, Patrick. Welcome to RPGaymer Season 3, Episode 7, a podcast about roguelikes. Jason.
Yes.
It's been a long time since it was just you and me on an episode.
I know. We're flying solo.
It's our podcast, and like here we are, just us again. We've had guest after guest after guest after Casey after guest, and
yeah.
now it's just us, like the good old days.
Yeah, no, it's crazy.
Speaking of the good old days, we're talking about like one of those game series or genres, I should say, that have been around for a really long
time.
Yeah. I mean, roguelikes.
Yeah. If you didn't get from the intro, that's what we're talking about.
I mean, isn't it true that like it was one of like the first types of games? It was based off of the game. Was it called Rogue?
It was just called Rogue.
And it was just it was this really like archaic now looking game where it was a bunch of like lines and moving through rooms.
It was the bloops and blips from back in the late 70s, early 80s. Yeah.
It's crazy what you learn when you go into these dives, because you think like X game is the first game of a genre, and then you find out that like actually that genre started 20 years ago, and this was probably the first person to maybe just like revolutionize it.
Yeah, I agree. I admit that I have only like read about Rogue. I have not played it.
Same.
I think it's just because it's so old. I mean, I don't know where I could.
Yeah, we are old.
Yeah, we're not that old.
We are not that old.
That's true. But I mean, like, I can appreciate what it is, like procedurally generated dungeons, and just the aspect of the game always being different when you jump in. That's pretty cool. And the first time, if I knew like I could play Super Mario World, and then like the next time I played it tomorrow, like it was not the same levels, like that'd be pretty sick. So I think it would be a pretty neat concept to have seen the first time it came out.
Do you think that everybody who like games knows what a roguelike is? Because I know if I went up to Scott right now and I was like, babe, what's a roguelike? He'd be like,
isn't that X-Men? Person in store? Yeah, X-Men, yeah.
That's a maybe.
That's anyone that has a streak of white in their hair. It's a roguelike.
So maybe, well, actually, he'd probably say something like Dungeons and Dragons if I had to guess, because of rogues in that.
That's a good point.
Why don't we start this episode coming up with our own little roguelike definition, just to kind of get the ball rolling for maybe people who aren't really sure what a roguelike is. And I know like this, I'm kind of akinning this episode to our survival horror episode, because we definitely talked about
what makes it a survival horror.
What is a survival horror? What are like the common components? So let's start there.
Okay. I can start. I feel like the biggest one is what we just talked about, where there's the procedural generation. So like the levels aren't always the same when you go there. They're following a certain script, maybe like you always enter the sewer first, but the layout of the dungeon is different. And like every time you play it, the layout of the enemies and treasures and stuff, that's also always different. I think that's your baseline for what I would say I would consider to be a roguelike game.
Yeah, randomness. Right? Like randomness, not like unnecessary randomness, but like coded randomness. Like you don't know what's coming up. I had kind of some different thoughts on it, like kind of like my intro, dying a lot.
Yeah.
When I think of roguelikes, and the grind, I think those are two big things. And that, I mean, like these games tend to be built on you slowly progressing and picking up the skill set to play the game. And it is really about doing it again and again, and the repetition and the getting better, but like also knowing that you don't know what's still coming next.
Yeah, I agree. And I feel like you typically see the same enemies over and over, and you're like learning their patterns as you go. So like you get that sort of progression feeling of knowing like, oh, okay, yeah, it's this big guy with a shield. I'm going to jump behind him first and attack him. So like learning it that way and kind of getting satisfaction from progressing in that sense. I think it's also kind of unique to this series or this genre, I should say.
It's cool because I know one thing that I tend to get turned off to in games is when um you get to like a plateau in what happens, and I think that's the nice thing about a roguelike is it kind of keeps it going, like it keeps your interest peaked because you don't know what is in that next room.
Yeah,
or that next
it's
door.
that one more room, one more run feeling. It's like it's not, I wouldn't say it's unique to this series, but it is kind of unique. I said series. It's this genre.
Genre. Yeah, I should have said that at the beginning.
Genre. I feel like, it's basically if someone decided, hey, I'm going to take the grind of a role-playing game and just make it the entire game and not have it be complete shit. And I feel like that's kind of what the basis is here. But it's fun. It's fun. It makes you want to keep going just to feel that extra hit of like dopamine.
Now, for the elitists and the cancelers, I think it's important to talk about what the difference between roguelikes and roguelites are. Light with a T. Just so you homies know, we're gonna mash them together in this episode, just because I mean it's the hugest overlap of Venn diagrams. But what's kind of the difference on these two guys? Because they aren't the same, but they're nearly the same.
Yeah, totally. I do think that we're also in a point right now where they are so Venn diagrammed. Like the circles are converging and they're just going to be one thing. But I think the biggest difference for lights is that maybe they're easier in a sense. But I think the biggest thing is there's usually permanent progression between runs. So like if you die in a roguelike, you start back over from the beginning, fair and square, like you're right there. But in the light, maybe
the only thing you carry over is like the skill or the knowledge.
The knowledge. Which is great, and it's fantastic. The roguelites,
the frustration
and the frustration. That's part of the knowledge. The roguelites, though, you usually carry over something permanent. Like maybe you can spend some skulls you got to get like permanent upgrades to your health or to your weapons, things like that. So every subsequent run might be a little bit easier, so you can get a little bit further and just feel like you're progressing in that sense. That actually leads right into how I got into enjoying roguelikes and roguelites. I had played some roguelikes and I was like, this is not for me. Like I was so frustrated and hated it. But when I played a roguelite, it felt so much more approachable. And
that does not surprise me because I know you are not a difficult
No, I ain't gonna play Dark Souls. Hell no. So like, I'm not gonna play like
which is funny because
it's
not even a rogue.
No, it's not. But like, I'm gonna die all the time. I want to die and enjoy what I'm doing. So roguelites like really offer that a little bit more. I feel like roguelites might be more of your like, I don't know, starter or more casual type of game like this, because you don't feel so like screwed when you lose. So it's a bit more fun to just play 20 minutes and enjoy. Like, I've made some progress, I'm going to try it again tomorrow. Or you can play for hours and hours and just build up your skill set, your avatar strength, so on and so forth, and go that way. I feel like this makes it kind of approachable by lots of people. So roguelikes, maybe you get your hardcore gamers, like I would say Patrick in a sense, who likes challenge and difficulty and wants to like progress further and get the satisfaction of building a perfect combo through a level. And then roguelites. I
mean, I don't like losing all of my shit either, Jason.
Yeah, like it's true.
I'm definitely more team roguelite than like, but for the sake of blending them, I mean, I think people just with short attention spans for games or people who enjoy more arcade like games, and that is very you are
that's a really good point.
And play.
That's a good point. I should mention that too. Like either one of these, let's just lump them together. Roguelikes. These are great for that pick up and play session. Like you don't have to commit 90 hours to beat Final Fantasy. You can commit like 90 seconds if you want to do a run. You could just do it so much shorter in this one and still feel like you're enjoying the game because you still get what the game is offering all right at the front.
Yeah, they're very gamey. Like when I think of roguelikes, I think of old arcade games where you don't necessarily know what's like, it's not necessarily a planned
It's like not a planned route. Like, it's not going to be jump on this,
Yeah.
run here, go through this cave. It's always different. So it's always a different run through.
Yeah,
feel you.
and like just that simplicity in it too, where we are seeing a lot of roguelikes that have a lot of systems that can either enhance or bog down the experience. It
Mhm.
kind of depends on what you're into, but like when I truly think of them, they are the more like gamey games. And I think people play them because they just enjoy the grind.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
aside from like you were just saying that I don't have to overthink what's going on. I can just like pick it up and put it down on that one run or a couple runs and just like have a clear ending point.
Yeah.
I think people really do get to see and enjoy that minimal progress that you kind of get from it.
Yeah, that is true. And I think it's kind of funny you say ending point, because you're absolutely right. Like, whenever I die in the game, I'm like, well, that was enough. It's like midnight. I should go to sleep. And so like I just end. Whereas other games, I'm thinking like, where the fuck is the save point? Or like I need to like get to this certain zone before I want to finish. Roguelikes have like a definitive, this is a good stopping point. So like you can put the game down and then come back later and feel like you're ready to go from the beginning.
Yeah, it's a lot easier to rage quit a roguelike than
Yeah.
it is to rage quit like Sekiro or Cuphead.
Yeah.
The number of times where I played Cuphead and I should put it down because a boss is driving me insane.
Mhm.
Versus, if you're playing any other roguelike and like it's like, okay, F this game,
Right.
I'm gonna go do something else now.
But
it's very different because you
It
at
is
least
different.
like you completed a run. Like technically that is a complete run.
That is
so-
done. Exactly. And I feel like it's not a rage quit, like a throw the switch across the room or the controller. It's more like
it could be.
it could be.
It
could be. But it's more like, damn, he got me, and I'm still really pissed. But like, yeah, that fireball hit me. So like, yeah, I feel you. I feel you. Well, actually, speaking of which, I feel like I wasn't really into roguelikes until semi recently. Maybe in the last, definitely the last like 6 or 7 years. But what was maybe your first experience in roguelikes?
I really had to think about this.
Yeah.
And I've changed my answer 3 times.
Okay.
And the reason why is because I'm thinking about the essence of what a
What it is.
roguelike is.
Yeah.
And tracking the length of time that I have played games. And I was like, oh, it was this game. Because I feel like a lot of people say Rogue Legacy was their first.
It's so good.
Because
yeah.
And we're definitely going to talk about that game. But then I had to go backward and I'm like, oh, but there were some games on Congregates, which were Flash games.
Yeah, Flash games.
Which I played because they were notorious for roguelikes. But not even that. Then I had to go back even further. And I was like, oh, you know what? All of those like Sheeran games,
Sheeran the
like
Wanderer, yeah. Mhm.
yeah, like Lufia the Legend Returns. I was like, oh, that was the first roguelike I'd ever played. Because literally all of the dungeons are procedurally generated, and like the only thing that's not is the world map and the fact that you get to keep your progress. But I mean, like in essence, it is.
Mhm.
But then I was like, but no, like I go
It
back
kept going
even
back.
further than that.
Yeah.
And so technically, the very first one I played that had me hooked then was Dragon Quest Monsters 1.
Is that a
Is a-
roguelike?
It is.
Really?
Because
Okay,
every
I played it too. I'm trying to think. Yeah, I guess it is. Every time you go in.
every different place that
Yeah.
you go into is procedurally generated.
Interesting,
Like
yeah.
you can get different items, you can get so it is a mystery dungeon in that way. And I think that's the other way that made me think about it, is that roguelikes are mystery dungeons.
Oh yeah. That's actually where I was going to go too. I also went to Rogue Legacy first, but I'm like, that definitely can't be the first one. But it's the most recent one that we'll talk about for sure. But I also went back and I included similar things that you said too. But yeah, Sheeran the Wanderer, Izuna on the DS is basically a mystery dungeon game. And then the mystery dungeon games were really big ones. I didn't even think about Dragon Quest Monsters.
Or like what's his name from Dragon Quest 4? Tornico had his own.
Yeah, Tornico had one too.
game,
Exactly.
yeah.
I also think I don't know if I'd call it a specific roguelike. But I did play a lot of the Gauntlet games, Gauntlet Legends, Dark Legacy. Like each level was differently laid out, and what you got and stuff was also different. And I think
Diablo 2. Diablo 2 is a rogue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's similar in that it's procedurally generated like that. So I think in those senses, the basis came from like all of those games, but the first ones, I guess I'm learning right now, might have actually been Dragon Quest Monsters. But
so, is that funny?
Yeah,
to
it's
think
funny.
though?
It's funny. Yeah. But I would say the first one was probably it was probably Izuna, the unemployed thief or whatever on the DS. It's essentially a mystery dungeon game, but same thing, exact same thing. You die, you go back to town, you have some items left over, you try it again. And I remember thinking like it was so fun and cool, hella hard. But yeah, that was probably my first one. And I didn't even know. I didn't even remember. I did. Like, yeah, I did. And I remember thinking, because I got it when we were in college, actually. So I got it a little bit later. And I remember thinking, like, this is so unique. Like, it's fun. I want to keep going. But then the frustration did set in where there wasn't a lot of the now roguelite elements where, like, you could keep progressing. Like, it was a little frustrating. And eventually I was just like, okay, I'm not feeling the story. Like, I'm going to move on from this. But it was neat. Like, I could see what they were going for. And I thought it was a cool concept.
Do you think that some of these games that we play that maybe we didn't realize are roguelikes, there was something that you didn't like about it because it almost seems like are roguelikes lazy design when it comes to like if that's not necessarily the essence of the game? And the reason I say that is because I remember when I played Dragon Quest Monsters, like I really did like that game, but when you jump into that game from any of the other Dragon Quest games and you're like, wait, every time I come in here it's different. Or like Persona 3 is the dungeons are roguelikes.
Interesting.
Tartarus is like, I don't think it's lazy to design, but I also think about it and it's like, do you think that they had to sacrifice some of what they were doing because the rest of the game is so good that this is like where they decide to like cut it? Or do you think that's intentional design?
What an interesting thought. Yeah, I think it's intentional, but I feel like let's pick on Persona. I would never consider Persona a roguelike, but like
but it does have the element of it.
There's elements, but I think it makes sense.
There are like a million elements in that game.
Yeah. I think it would make sense, but let's pick on that game while we're talking about it. So like if you were Tartarus and like you were there and everyone cleared monsters from the first floor, people wouldn't, like, the monsters wouldn't just not go back to the first floor when everyone leaves. I feel like it makes sense that like they would be back. And like in this case, it's a crazy mystery place. So like the floor's rearranged. So like it makes sense story-wise why it's there. And also from a gameplay point, if I'm like entering from the beginning every time, I don't want to have to go through floors of nothingness. And that would include like every roguelike. I mean, if you just started and you had to keep going and it was just boring nonsense content, like it would almost be lazy content if they didn't do it, because otherwise it doesn't lend itself to like the gameplay they're trying to offer you. So I think it's not lazy. I think it is what it's supposed to be, and that's like kind of the idea behind it.
Yeah, so I feel like just like in how everything is an RPG.
Yeah.
Now I feel like roguelike is also becoming one of those subgenres that gets tacked onto it, because you see it in so many different games. And I think kind of what you're saying, it does kind of hit the narrative. And I really was just like thinking out loud because Persona 3, I like that game. We're talking about that series in season 4, like is one of the ones I have planned because I love that game and that series so much. But like, thinking out loud, did I enjoy it? How is this different? Because then you started to see it incorporated in games a lot more. I mean, hell, even Stardew Valley has that in the mines. And like, it does kind of make sense because you probably wouldn't be going, like you said, into the same mine every time. You would take a different path the way down because you already know, I already mined everything here. But it also does feel like it robs a little bit of that experience, because what if I wanted to go back?
Yeah.
And just to think like that is just completely gone. Like maybe you ran out of space, or you got knocked out.
I think you're bringing up a good point too. And I feel like you're talking about the completionist aspect of it. It's very difficult to complete that and like do it all the way through unless you literally do the perfect run. So once you're done, you're like, okay, like start to finish, beat the boss. Like there's nothing else to really do, because maybe there isn't. Like that's how you complete that game in that sense. And if you're like, oh, okay, I mined the mines in Minecraft. Wow. I mined in the mines in Stardew Valley, and like now the mines are done. That wouldn't be that good gameplay, because then you would go there. There's nothing else to do in the mines. Like you might want to enjoy doing that. So I feel like it's neat that it does blend in the roguelike experience into other genres, other games, other styles of games, because it's just augmenting them. It's just making them more fun and more cool and more gameplay aspects for the player. And I'm down for that. I think it's great.
I think the other reason too, where I would be iffy about it when I was younger, because you know how when you're in, and this is for like games that are roguelikes as like a tack on, not
Mhm, mhm.
just full on roguelike games. So we'll get back to that in a sec. You know how when you're in just a dungeon in any RPG and you
Mhm.
find a chest and it is typically an upgrade of the equipment that you have, and you're like, oh my God, this is incredible. I'm so happy that I
Sure.
found this. Like, and it could have been maybe a hidden chest, or you had to do something a little bit unique in order to find it. I think that's one of the things that was such a turnoff to me as a kid too. In like Dragon Quest Monsters or in Persona, or definitely Lufia The Legend Returns, where
Mhm.
pretty much all you're getting are consumables.
Yeah, it's like potions. Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah, and like I know in Persona sometimes you'll find like a piece of equipment here and there which could be cool, but there's no intent or design behind it. It's just
Yeah.
sheer randomness,
Randomness.
and like that does not feel as great when you like make this discovery, because it's
That's true.
all just the sheer chance of it. So I think maybe a part of where that thought was coming from is coming from that too, where like it's
Mm.
cool that everything's random, but
Yeah.
sometimes it's really nice when you get that really tight design
Yeah, I was just
in a
gonna say the same
dungeon
thing.
too.
Like when something is designed with player intent, with where the designers know the player is taking this route, and if they go left, they will find this chest. That is really unique, and like you do not get that in roguelikes. It is inherent that it's not there. So I do think that that's a good call out. If you're looking for that sort of satisfaction of completing that, it might be there, but like there is no guarantee you're going to find that. So that's a good call out. Good call out.
Um so we kind of just talked about this, and I feel like this is going to be a big branching point for a lot of our conversation from here on, is
Sure.
that like we just said, roguelikes do not have a specific niche that they fall in,
Hmm.
right? Like it is a subgenre,
Yeah,
because
you
some
got
roguelikes
roguelike
are
RPGs, robot
platforming,
shooters,
so
platforming.
some
Yeah.
are shooters. What do you enjoy most? Like where is Jason's this is what I play?
This is what I play. I feel like it's probably going to lean towards the action platformer side of it. I'm thinking of, we can get into the specifics now. I'm thinking of Rogue Legacy, Dead Cells, those types of games, to be specific. I think that's where I fall most. But if I had to pick like the biggest subgenre, and it's probably the cop out, is just the RPG, because everything is an RPG. Because I would also include things like Slay the Spire and stuff, that card based game.
So I think when we talk about RPGs, let's talk about RPGs in the sense of like more traditional.
More traditional.
So
Yeah.
I when I say RPG, I would probably think something like Darkest Dungeon.
Darkest Dungeon.
I
Mhm.
wouldn't say Slay the Spire.
It's a card based one.
Yeah, because it is card based, and then it is
Yeah,
RPG.
I think
you know what
maybe
I mean?
maybe the easier answer I could give is what I probably wouldn't like as much, and I don't think I like the shooter as much. And I know we were talking off stream, like I haven't played some of the newer ones, Returnal, Deathloop, things like that, but I have played like
Jason,
Risk of Rain, and like they're really fun. It's cool, but I think that
catching you on something here. There is a roguelike that you've played that we both have really liked, and we played it together.
Well, it's Remnant. Like I mean, I get
Remnant,
it.
yeah,
I
always back to Remnant.
I get it. It's true, but I think when I look at, if I see a tagline for something like, and it has roguelike features, like I'm less inclined if it's a shooter. I'm probably more inclined if it's your platform. If it's a card based game, like for sure, I think that's probably where I would lean most. But what about you? What are your thoughts?
I think I land a little similarly to you. But I play a lot of games, so it's hard. Like
Mm-hmm.
I do like platformers. I do like RPGs as roguelikes. I like Metroidvania as roguelikes.
Oh yeah,
I like
yeah,
deck
definitely.
builders. But I think maybe my favorite might be survival games.
Okay.
I like, we played the Survivalists together, which is a roguelike survival game, and that's one of those ones where I think the randomness really works well, because I mean, like, if you think about it, Terraria is
Yeah,
a
definitely.
roguelike, because it has that procedural generation. Like you if like we could go back and play that game,
Yeah.
and we would not necessarily find the exact same things that we found, so that experience could still be a lot of fun. And that is one of the nice things about roguelikes, is they do tend to have a good amount of replayability.
Replay value.
Maybe that's the other reason people play them all the time too. So it's hard for me to say because like you, I've played there are like millions of roguelikes.
There's lots. Yeah.
There is it's
Just
hard
Google
to
it.
say like the ones that we've played like probably overlap a little bit, but not completely. And then that doesn't even scratch the surface of all the ones that are on Steam that like are the dark web roguelikes.
The dark web of roguelike. Yeah, it's true. But I mean, it makes sense because I think like as an indie developer, I'm not a developer, but if you were, like, what an easy gameplay loop to hook people. Like you just keep going. Like that's such a simple concept. And it's also not in a detriment. Like as long as your idea is great, yeah, have them start over, experience that core gameplay again. And I think it just makes sense. And it's a testament to the quality of the roguelike that there are the dark web of roguelike. It is out there and you can just keep getting any experience that you want. So it's pretty great.
This obviously depends on what style of roguelike we're talking about, but where do you think most of the difficulty comes from in ones that you play?
Good point. I feel like it comes from, how do I want to say this?
Sheer fuckery.
Yeah, I feel like it comes from just understanding the gameplay mechanics first, obviously, for any game, but then it's also just discovering what you are supposed to do with the enemies or the encounter you find. So, like, for example, I am playing through Rogue Legacy 2 right now, and that game adds a little bit more difficulty in platforming. So, like, trying to find out, like I'm supposed to jump dash here and then like jump again and like make this platforming area. Like you don't know that when you first start. So I think it's that. Or when there's a boss that might be really susceptible to spear attacks, like in a game like Moonlighter, for example. But they're not that great against like swords because you're too close to them. So it's that idea of finding it out. I think that's where it starts for me.
I think for me, again, it depends on where, but I think just what makes them difficult is the early game.
Yeah, it makes sense. And that's like make or break for a roguelike. If it's not good, like you're just gonna not do it because you're gonna die and be like, that sucks. Maybe try one more time, and then just be like, that really sucked, and then and run away. It's a really delicate balance.
Yeah, I think most of the time, it could be like later on in the game, anyone can say you just get so overwhelmed by sheer numbers and complexity, and that's when roguelikes, I'm thinking maybe more RPG oriented ones, tend to just throw on the numbers and whatnot. But I think really the true difficulty comes from how quickly you grasp the systems in an early game, and that really just determines, are you gonna have a bad time or are you gonna
have a good time?
Or are you gonna have
pretty insightful? That's a good way to put it. Yeah, because I mean, looking at like Slay the Spire, I mean, I love that game. Might be in my top 25 games of all time. Like, I think it's really fun, but it's only because I kept trying, and the game did a good job introducing me slowly to its concepts. If they gave me like every card and every character to start with, I'd be like, oh, like, where do I start?
So,
like, what am I supposed to do? Yeah.
It is so nice when you play deck builders, where you earn things as you go, versus the ones where it's literally like, here it is, everything. I super appreciate that approach where you get this like limited deck and you just like kind of go from there. It kind of reminds me of what it'd be like if, you were playing that kind of game in real life, like when you and I played something like Magic together when we were in college. Like, I had what I had, you had what you had, and you'd build a deck from it, and then from then on you could experiment with new things and try other things. But like, it's not like, but if you're like, here's the full library of
here's
Magic
all
together,
50 million cards, I'd be like, what is this? It's wild. Yeah, I feel you.
We're gonna take a quick break and we'll be right back. And we are back. And Jason, we were talking about games that have roguelike features, and I really just can't let it go.
Okay. What's on your mind?
So it just when you it's like when you you take a step back and you see the world from a different perspective, and everything just kind of like comes together, and like the stars line, and like it's like everything is just different now.
Mm-hmm.
How do you feel about it when you see these games that aren't roguelikes throw in roguelike elements? And the reason why I'm like, well, okay, Lufia the Legend Returns is completely roguelite ish because all the dungeons, but Lufia 2 has a dungeon in it that has 100 floors.
Oh god.
And when you go into it, your characters are level 1, okay, and you can go through the full 100 floors and find stuff, and like roguelike style, get things, and there are certain chests that you can find as you're playing. And if you hit those chests, they're usually pretty good equipment, and you can take that back to your regular gameplay. There are a few games that, like, you know, have this, I am not a roguelike, but I have an extension of that. How does that make you feel when you just see that in there as like kind of like a supplement to what's going on in a game?
Interesting. I haven't played Lufia.
Lufia 2 is one of those games where you should go back and play
and try it.
Like I highly encourage, because it is a good game.
Copy that. I'll keep it on my backlog. Yeah, I think it's cool. I feel like from your description, it sounds like a completely different game they just threw in. Like, hey, here's this whole new mode. But it's neat that you could pull it back into your
kind of
game.
is like a whole plume mode, a whole new mode.
the whole plume mode. Yeah, the whole new mode. I think it's neat, and I feel like if nothing else, it's another gameplay experience for the player, and that sounds really cool. My only hesitation to it would be if it was like a requirement and you didn't want to do it. Like if you're going through the normal turn-based RPG and then suddenly they're like, here's this 100 level dungeon you have to go through that's roguelike, I'd be like, whoa, hang on. But it sounds like it's optional, and like that's cool. And then being optional, I think it can do its own thing of being all set on its own. Like you just go and do it and have fun. But if it does pull in things to your main game, I would feel inclined as the main game player to like want to try to do it. I'd want to see. It's making me try that new experience and enjoy it, and then so I can just get better at my base game. So I think it's fine. I feel like it's a cool addition, and I think they'd be neat. If nothing else, it opens your gamer eyes up to alternate ideas, perspectives, genres that you might enjoy.
I feel like Wild Arms 3 did something similarly, but it was not a start fresh. I know you played Wild Arms 3.
I was like, wait, what did Wild Arms 3 do?
So it was just a dungeon end game where you can fight one of the super bosses, and it's another like 100 floors of procedural generation. And
that was the optional one. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Platinum trophy for that. But some, like, you're right. Like it if you want more of a game, it's cool. I personally prefer Lufia 2's version of it because there are things that you can kind of like take back and have some fun with. But yeah, I would like to see more games do something like that. Like, could you imagine if you're playing Mario and
I was just thinking Mario 2,
Yeah,
I mean, maybe. And I feel like I haven't played this one yet, but the Switch version of Mario 3D World, it had that like Bowser's thing on it. I can't remember, but it was like the
Bowser's Fury.
Bowser's Fury, yeah. It was the big open world one. Again, not a roguelike, but like taking risks like that, but in the safety of a game that you know people are going to enjoy anyways. They're going to play Mario 3D World, which is great, by the way.
Yeah. Do you know why that Bowser 3D World or Bowser's Fury is the best?
The
like,
cat.
Honestly, it's the cat.
Everything
is cats. Everything is cats.
Everything is cats. But there's the safety net. The safety net is, hey, if this experiment doesn't work, it's not its own game. It's still coupled with this thing we know will work. So I would say, yeah, why not? Let's do a Mario game where it's procedurally generated, a 3D, 2D. It doesn't even matter. Heck, why not? Why not make it both? And so like that could be a really neat thing, and I would love to see it. I think, as you mentioned before the break, the roguelike subgenre fits many places, and so I think it would be neat to just throw that in and let the players have fun with something new.
One of the things it sounds like we're dancing around is the gameplay hook.
Yeah.
And how essential it is to an actual roguelike or games with roguelike elements. Like you said, for Lufia or some of these ones, knowing that you can bring something back into your main game, that's a hook. Or even if it's just like a regular roguelike, what makes the grind feel so good when you are playing a roguelike versus if you're just your typical
Typical
game
RPG or game.
grinding. Yeah,
Yeah.
it doesn't, no, I wouldn't necessarily say it has to be an RPG, but you, when you think of the grind, you tend to think of RPGs. So
Right.
what is it that makes the grind feel so good in a roguelike?
For me, it's that aspect of just the getting your progress a little bit further each time. So the gameplay hook might be, I have a new weapon, or I've upgraded my skill, or like now I'm on level 2. I got to see what this lava level brings me. Something like that. That's what really hooks me, and it makes me feel like this is the game I want to see, and I want to see more of it. And it's just unique. And I think it's because maybe because it's so quick, like when you might get through it. Whereas an RPG, let's pick on Final Fantasy IV. Like you do see some other worlds, but it takes potentially hours or dozens of hours to get to the moon. So like it's different. But in this game, you get more of in these types of games, you get more bite-sized features where you get the next level, the next stage, the next deck, and like that slow drip that you kind of get based on your skill set feels really satisfying.
Well, and it's more dynamic too. Like the
Mm-hmm.
grind in an RPG or in any other game. I mean, even if you're grinding for orbs in like God of War or Devil May Cry,
Yeah.
isn't dynamic, but like it is in roguelikes because you're not seeing the same thing as you're doing it. So like I
Yeah.
haven't
True.
played, I know this is blasphemy, and trust me when I say it's on the list, but like I haven't played Hades yet.
Oh my god.
And
No.
I know. It like I really just need to get it. But
Mm-hmm.
I know that I would much rather do 30 minutes of gameplay to get the next upgrade in
Mm-hmm.
that game versus 30 minutes in Dragon Quest or Final Fantasy of just fighting the same monsters to get the next upgrade, because they're like,
Yeah.
at least there's just a lot more to it. And not even the fact that like one's an action game and one's a turn-based RPG, just because you see more
Mm-hmm. That's funny
see
because
different things, yeah.
thinking out loud of like what would I spend 30 minutes in Hades doing versus what would I spend 30 minutes in like Dragon Quest 11 doing? They are drastically different things for how you spend 30 minutes. But yeah, and I can't believe, speaking of 30 minutes, you've been in this podcast for 30 minutes and have not mentioned Hades. Yeah, it's great, and I think that sense of discovery is really really unique, and that's probably what you're getting at, that sort of feeling right away that you have something new, something fun, something exciting to explore. It's pretty unparalleled to like other non-roguelikes. It's really unique to this genre.
I will say though, first of all, I mean, there is a certain level of world building that you get in non-roguelikes that is really nice in
Sure.
in the 30 minutes that you could be spending it, because obviously this is not a genre that's for everyone. But also I think that I think one issue that comes up when we're talking about roguelike grinding is if it is actually good or if it's just addictive. And I think that is one of those things where I don't know if everybody who plays games realizes that they're having fun or if they're just addicted to the process or
Totally.
the mold.
Totally. Yeah, that makes
You
sense.
know?
I'm a major fan of the numbers go up genre, and like even though I might not know it, like because you go through. I think your biggest one here is Diablo. I mean, like
Which you and I have talked about. Where like that's where I really struggle with it,
Yeah.
because I did not find Diablo 3 fun.
Yeah, but like I'm sure
it was addictive.
It was addictive. It was nice to see your levels go up. You get more skills, things like that. Yeah, I could see it, and I think I feel like I want to say roguelikes are not like that, but I'm sure at some point it is, and I feel like I am there with Rogue Legacy 2 right now. Like I'm running through, and I'm nowhere near like the final stages, but like I'm just going through basically to grind mindlessly to get more gold, like to get a little bit further, and then like keep going. I don't necessarily know if I'm enjoying it. I think I'm enjoying it enough that I want to keep going, but I think it's because I want to progress like my story and character, and not like I am so addicted to the gameplay. Like the gameplay is good or anything. I mean, it is, but like I think it's more so my motion for keeping going forward is based on that sort of I just want to do it because I can sort of idea, not like I want to do it because it's super duper fun.
Yeah, I kind of got stuck in that where I was playing Loop Hero,
Oh, cool.
And
That's on my list. Yeah.
I think it's a fine game. I love the idea behind the game. I love the aesthetic of the game, but maybe I just wasn't feeling it. But there was a certain point when I was playing it where I was just kind of like, I don't know if I'm actually enjoying this.
Yeah.
Because it is so heavily the grind.
Sure.
That I was just kind of like, maybe I just doing this because that loop is really addictive. Like there's really not much to the game. It's minimal story. And one, actually, let's talk about that real quick. Do you think that story matters in roguelikes? Like, should we factor that into something that is important in the genre that is so based off of the grind?
Yeah. See, this is where I'm going to introduce my video game memoirs of it's going to be called "I Didn't Know That Story Mattered in Games," or also known as "When I Discovered Hades." I think that like I really didn't think it did, but a game like Hades, and I think it's fine you haven't played it. Like just get to it when you can. It's great. But I feel like
my birthday's coming up.
There you go. I hope Scott's listening. So you like with that one, I think it's unique in that, yeah, story definitely plays an element into it, but Supergiant Games injected story like into the parts that we as roguelike players thought were just mundane, like the deaths, the restarting. So like story is now so cool, and in there, your death in that game specifically now directly impacts the story, which is minor. Like it's not like, oh, I died here, like this is going to change something crazy, but people reference it. So now it's not this weird system of like, okay, I traveled back in time and no one knows what I did. No, everyone knows what you did. Like this story is here. You died to this character on this floor, and like Hermes is going to say that. So it was really cool. And then from there, they built in story so that your consecutive runs made sense with like why you were doing them. So like it in the whole sense, they took a subgenre and made it the main genre. And in that sense, I think it works because
question for you, playing devil's advocate. Do you think that Hades is the outlier though?
I think Hades is the outlier. I think it's the game that people are going to start to chase, to be like, this is what we're going to do to be a Hades-like, maybe. I mean, there's Diablo clones. Maybe there's going to be a Hades-like. And I think it's going to be one that would specifically focus on a large story element. And it's one that your runs each time through the dungeon, through whatever, have meaning. So it's not just I'm repeating, I'm going back, I'm trying again. People notice, people recognize, and you see that represented in the story.
The reason I say that is because personally, I think the loop, when we see story included in roguelikes, is the setup, dungeon 1 or run 1, you finally complete it, more story. Next loop, you finally complete it, more story. And I don't necessarily think that is good because, you know, you have to really earn that story progression, and it's usually so minimal. It's like they're trying to give you a reason to go through the dungeons, and I feel like a lot of these games, it's just so weak. Like Moonlighter, for example. Like here's a game about being a shopkeeper, and like now we have this whole like alien you know,
what's going on here?
Right. So I don't personally know how I feel about stories in roguelikes. I think unless you are a decent storyteller, don't bother. Like don't add it, because I think it is pretty clear when it's a weak story that it really is just there to cushion a probably really good game.
Yeah, I agree. And like you're defining like pillars of story, like each dungeon you've beat. And it makes sense, but like gamers are already going to be playing your game multiple times anyways if it's a good roguelike to begin with. So I think it's really when a developer thinks, I want to inject story as like the basis of the game, and then they're going to put roguelike in afterward. And I think that's why Hades works. I think it's very obvious the way the game was going. They knew they're making a roguelike, and they thought, how can we put story so that every time Zagreus goes through, he has confrontation with Hades? And why? like, why does it keep happening? It's not just the honestly kind of throwaway of we're traveling back in time, or this is my descendant, or like I'm just gonna wake up in my bedroom and start again. Like it was a lot more unique. I would really say if anyone listening hasn't played it to understand what I'm talking about, like you really should. First off, it's a great game, but second, I think it's a cool way to inject story into a really unique gameplay genre.
So I want to spend some time because you're boasting about Hades being an excellent roguelike, and I will never ever like go against you on that. But there are a lot of other really good roguelikes with really good mechanics. And what I want to talk about, even if the roguelike itself isn't perfect, what are some of the really good mechanics that you've seen thrown in some of these games?
Yeah. I think this is my spotlight for Darkest Dungeon. So that
really,
yeah, I think that is not a game you probably thought I would say, but
no, because I mean, like that's you get bogged down. Not even like the gameplay itself is it's hard because it is really hard, but just like there's also a ton of different things to manage in that one too. For you, I would not have thought that like that would be something that you would say. For that reason.
Yeah, so with Darkest Dungeon, for the uninitiated, play Hades first and then play Darkest Dungeon. But it's more of an explore the dungeon as a team sort of thing, and like encounters.
Well, those are apples and oranges. Like,
yeah, they're very different. But like what I liked though, again, is kind of like story. You get really attached to some of your characters that go like that live throughout the dungeon, or maybe
they've seen some shit.
So maybe they go crazy.
Like an eldritch horror turn-based RPG, very like what mythos-based monsters, and like your characters are constantly having to protect their sanity.
Yeah,
they've seen shit.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what I think is unique. Like there's this sense of dread all the time, and it feels like it fits the theme. So yeah, you're going through dungeons, you might be getting levels or skills, whatever, but like that dungeon's crazy. Like this town is not that great, but you build up the town, and so like you're building resistance. I just loved like a hero that you go through 3-4 times and they finally die, and the devastation you have of that because they ain't coming back usually. Like it's like, oh man, it's such a neat one, and I think that was a cool use of that sort of mechanic that like. We're bringing in more than just status effects. Things carry over round to round. People will permanently die. I thought that one was a neat one. What about you? What stands out for you?
On a simple level, and then I'll get to maybe a more like complicated, unique one. I think Dicey Dungeons.
Oh yeah.
I feel like you knew I was gonna say this game. I just think one of the things it does that's really cool. Is it switches up the rules for each character. So there are 6 different characters that you can play as, and they all have their own play style to the game that are pretty drastically different. And then within those 6 characters, each character has 6 chapters, and the rules change each chapter. So you are seeing something different or playing different every single loop, and that can be really frustrating if you can't like wrap your head around how to complete a chapter. But I almost has that puzzle element of like how to tackle it. Like if you played the Inventor chapter 2, it's not going to be the same way that you play the Inventor chapter 4, even though it's the same character, and for the most part you have the same abilities. So I think that is one of those things that keeps that game very fresh. But I'd say the end all be all for like unique roguelikes is Crypt of the Necrodancer or Cadence of Hyrule.
Yeah, that's a unique one.
The fact that literally you fight a zombie samba line.
Yeah, to the beat.
To the beat.
Yeah.
Like, so if you don't know this game, this is one of those games where it's a rhythm game.
Yeah.
Like grid style roguelike where you move your character to the rhythm of a song, which sounds very complicated, but I'm not a big rhythm game person. And I beat Cadence of Hyrule. I haven't completely beaten Crypt of the Necrodancer yet, but it's just fun. And like it's one of those games where because the music is bumping as you are playing the game, you don't care about how much you suck as much because the music is just so good and fun.
It's so
like,
fun, yeah.
You're gonna get eviscerated in that game, but like you have a good time doing it because the different characters, the different equipments and whatnot, and then just the way the music keeps going. It just that is a truly unique experience. There are not many other games that are like that.
I'll completely agree. And I have a fun side story. I did not know Crypt of the Necrodancer was a roguelike when I first played it, because everyone talked about how it was so unique that you jump through. I'm like, oh, cool. And I died like immediately all the time.
Oh, yeah,
and I'm like, what
absolutely.
am I doing wrong? And it's, that's
I don't think it's until Cadence of Hyrule came out, which is much easier to play. And if you're a Zelda fan, is like, get it, because it is just like, it's very cool.
And obviously great music. Yeah.
I went back and then did and completed, or as much as I could, Crypt of the Necrodancer. So like I played it some, but like Cadence is the one that really even more sold me on it, because like I would love to see a Final Fantasy Crypt of the Necrodancer. I would love to see a Mario Crypt of the Necrodancer, because it would just work. Like that is a genre within a genre within a genre. Like it is such a good idea.
I agree. I have one more topic. Do we have time for one more topic?
Yeah.
I like. I got to give a shout out to the one that really hooked me, and that's Rogue Legacy. And I think that it's probably the basis of things. I think it might have been unique at the time, but now it's not as unique anymore. But in this one,
when it first came, like I played it on launch too. When it came out, this was the unique game.
It was unique. So like when you die, your legacy is that your next character is like your descendant, and they might have some traits that are unique to them. So like that's the hook. But the traits are funny sometimes. Like sometimes your character has bad eyesight, so like every enemy is blurry. Or sometimes your character is like a giant, so they're like twice as large. But it also affects gameplay. Like, because now, like, if I can't see the enemy, like, what am I fighting? Or like, oh, I'm too big, I can't actually go through this door anymore.
Well, and they're not all bad. Like sometimes you're related to a dragon, so you can fly.
Yeah, exactly. So it's super duper unique. And I see it expanded right now playing through Rogue Legacy 2. There's way more classes that you can be. But also there's just more unique stuff that you pass down. That it's all randomized. Like you don't get to see it. You just get a selection. Like, do you want to be Sir Jonathan III, who, you know, can fly, or do you want to be like Lady Seraph, who can, like, I don't know, see through walls? Like it's random stuff like that. And I thought that was really fun. That made me that hook made me want to keep playing through and just see what was the next crazy thing it would add. And it's complemented by a really charming, like, silly style. And it just all worked. I think that was a good hook that really, really made me like roguelikes. All right, well, we've talked about good games. I've also played some not so good roguelikes that just didn't hit it for me, but I want to hear what you think first. What are some of the worst ones that you've played?
I wouldn't necessarily say worst games, worst roguelikes, but maybe just kind of like mechanics that need some love.
Sure.
So I have two. I think Moonlighter is probably the big one for me, where Moonlighter is not a bad game.
Yeah, need some love is a good way to put it.
It is a really good idea, and I did enjoy playing it, but the further I went, like the more the less the enjoyment was there, because the systems weren't really refined. So basically, you know, your first loop when you're a poor shopkeeper, you are trying to like make ends meet and sell things in your shop and whatnot, and you go in a dungeon, you beat up a bunch of monsters, make weapons, find things to sell in your shop. But then like later on, you just kind of find easy ways to manipulate what you're selling, and you're just selling random things. Like, why would anyone ever need this?
Yeah.
You're also the combat's not too great. So I think that is one of the big things for me, where, you know, like I would love to see a Moonlighter 2, and I would love to see a super refined experience, but like I would not go back and play that game after, because I feel like there probably is better now, and which sucks, because like shopkeeper games I'm there for that. And then the other one, I think just when, and this is just in general, where they're just too easily broken. Like, Hades would not be fun if you could 2 hours in find a combination of things where nothing could defeat you. And I know some people love breaking games, but I feel like games should not be so easily broken. And I get the impression from Vampire Survivor that's kind of the case, where like you can just very easily break it based on your build. And like at that point, are you having fun?
Yeah. Or
You
you're
know,
doing what you have to do. You're doing the meta.
right. And so to me, I think any roguelike in there where it's just kind of like, okay, well, activate cheat mode, here you just have the easy
Hmm.
way of doing it. It's cool when you're like, oh, I found a way to break this game, but then it's like, okay, but now everyone knows how to break this game, so maybe the peak creators should have done a better job. I don't know. That's just me. I don't.
Yeah, yeah.
I feel like once the challenge is no longer there as a game worth playing. That's just kind of how I see things.
Yeah, I feel ya. I can echo those too. I think to give a unique one for me, I never really got into Enter the Gungeon, which I know a lot of people liked, and it's actually really, really liked. I think the game was fine. I just feel like maybe I didn't play it right. Like maybe you're supposed to play it big multiplayer settings, and I just didn't
I
do that.
definitely think it is fun as a multiplayer game.
Yeah, so like I just didn't do it that way. And when we tried to play with my friends, we also just didn't hook us in the beginning of that loop, like we mentioned earlier. The first couple runs were just like, nah.
Do you think a part of it is that if not everybody has a comparable skill level, then that type of roguelike isn't as fun? Because
Yeah.
I can see that where I would not have a good time if everyone else kept dying and couldn't keep up. And I don't even mean that in like an elitist way. I just mean
Yeah.
like I feel like because the game is scaled for
Yeah.
that, then all of a sudden like
It's
you're
harder for
left
you now
dealing-
too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's harder for you now too.
Yeah,
So
that's a
is
good
that
point.
kind of what it is?
That's probably what it is too. So like it just doesn't land with what my friend group might need, and then it didn't land for me with what I would want with my own game. So I think that's probably where that one came from. I'm sure it's great now if I go back and try it again, but nah, there's other ones. I think a lot of older roguelites just haven't aged as well as you might hope. So I feel like it might just be that there's too many modern takes on it, so it's a little bit different. Like, for example, I don't know if I went back to play Shiren and the Wanderer again, if I would actually enjoy it. I think that I would enjoy it for like the novelty of it being old, but like I might want a bit more modernness put into it, where it's not so archaic with like, the turn-based movement or the systems that are a lot more brutal than I'm used to right now. Like I think my mentality has just changed over the years. So
I think it kind of depends on. I mean, obviously this is preference, but I think it depends on what their unique spin is.
Sure.
And I think because that is the base one,
Mm-hmm.
there is no unique spin. Like
it is what it is.
Quest Monsters 1 is cool because you can find different monsters. Or one of my favorite roguelikes is, it's so silly, is the Etrian Mystery Dungeon.
Mission, yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And like it's because you are fusing two things, and when you go into the dungeons, like it's an Etrian game. Like you have the four classes there.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like playing Pokemon Mystery Dungeon, but like there are the other elements that they added to it too, like FOEs are
still on the
Etrian, like, so I think when you go back to the ones that are just like base,
they're just not offering enough. The base is not enough anymore, in my opinion. I'm more sophisticated now, game developers, so like I need
she's
more
a classy
to satisfy.
hoe.
See, exactly, that's me.
Are there any roguelikes for our listeners that you would say are more along the lines of beginner friendly? Because I'm sure there are a lot of people who like want to know where a good jumping point is. And this is the hard thing, I'm sure, to answer too, because as we talked about earlier, there are 10 different genres of roguelikes. There are the RPG ones or deck building. What are some of the ones that you think are beginner friendly, whichever subgenre we're talking about?
Oh, easy. It's Darkest Dungeon is the easiest one to get into.
Yes.
No, I think
go get fisted right away so nothing else feels like anything.
Just
that's what
turn off
is.
the whole genre. That's a great question. I think the easy one is probably player preference. Like, what do you like most? Like, if you like shooters, I would say like Risk of Rain. If you like card games, Slay the Spire. But if I think
Slay the Spire is a beginner friendly.
I think so. I think it's beginner friendly because I think it's simple in its concept. Like when you're playing the Ironclad, the first character, like you immediately know I attack and I defend. That's what I do. And then they throw in other mechanics like, ooh, I can bleed people. I can delay attacks. I can do a heavy strike. So like it makes sense.
I would say that Dicey Dungeon is even more simple than
I could see it. I could see it. And I think I would say Slay the Spire over Dicey Dungeon. I think it's objectively a better game. But I think
I'm not gonna deny that,
but
I think for like
from the
beginner friendly.
Right. From the beginner friendly, I think that Slay the Spire starts off very, very basic. Like you understand what is happening and you get it as you go. And it's smart because as you learn as the player, you start getting more concept. You unlock the what's it called? The thief one, the second class. You get those, then you see their skill set. You start getting more content. So it's a slow build. That one works. But before we jump into yours too, I think that in general, what I would say is the easiest one is the action platformer, and I would just say Rogue Legacy. Like that's a really simple one to jump into. It's very obvious what you do.
Oh my god,
screen
who
by
are
screen.
You?
What are you talking about?
Do not listen to Jason. Listen to me.
Okay, what do you have to say? What do you have to say?
I think that Dicey Dungeon is approachable for everyone, and not only in like playability, but I think in presentation too. Like the graphics look like they're straight out of Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends.
Yeah. Definitely.
I mean, I did that full review on that one, which I think was my second video I ever made. So hit or miss. On
watch with caution.
Yeah, watch with caution, but still entertaining. Still got some good jokes in there. But I just kind of feel like it is more designed for the everyman. Where I feel like if you're not a big fantasy person, you're probably not going to enjoy Slay the Spire. You know,
okay,
I think
good point.
So there's there's that there, and then I think that Shovel Knight Dig is so much more approachable than Rogue Legacy. Rogue Legacy can be really hard, especially the boss battles.
Yeah,
are just like miserable, like if you make it to the boss. And I think that's because it is that older game experience too, where like those were the nerds who liked the hard things, and that was one of the first early roguelike platformers. But I think for some of the newer ones, like I think Shovel Knight Dig is a much better experience. And
so why would you I guess why would you say that? Because I haven't played Dig, but like why does that game stand out as the easier one for a new beginner?
I think not being along the lines of a Metroidvania really helps. I think just the direction that you go, since you're always going down, really kind of makes you not have to worry about everything. I think not having to worry about having a deficit when you're playing based on your like there were some times where I would just go walk my character when playing Rogue Legacy into a spike pit.
Yeah,
because I did not want to play that version of whatever generation inheritance that I had, you know.
Sure.
Which I mean, like I know part of that is I'm taking a little bit of the fun away, and I wouldn't do that for everyone, but you don't have to worry about that, something like that in
Shovel Knight,
yeah.
Interesting. Okay, well, I mean, what good perspective for our listeners, because I feel like if you're giving them like here's the casual entry point that makes it simple, maybe mine are more so like if you want to build up to like bigger boy versions of
it would
games,
be the moderate stepping stone, because I mean like once you get to the bosses of Rogue Legacy, like you're in nigh bullet hell territory in some parts, where like Shovel Knight, it's kind of like that Mega Man-ish learn the pattern of the boss.
It's actually doable.
Yeah, it's actually doable, but like until you learn the pattern of some of the bosses, which is frustrating because, you know, like I'm not saying you should always have to defeat a boss the first time you get to them, but then like who knows the next time that you're actually going to see that boss, right?
That's so funny. Like I just had an epiphany because I'm just thinking like this boss I'm stuck at in Rogue Legacy 2, and I think I just realized what I need to do. Like this is fantastic. So I'm gonna do it. I'll report back later.
You're welcome.
Yeah, thank you.
So I want to end this on talking about, you know, kind of like that bite-sized nature of runs.
Sure.
And how we like comparing things to other games or incorporating things in other established series or whatnot. So how would we roguelikeify some of our faves, other series?
This is such an easy segue for me to talk about Mega Man, the Rogue Edition.
I mean, you don't even need. There is a roguelike version of it in Mega Man 9, right?
No, yeah, technically. But no, I get what you're saying.
Wait, hang on. Do you know there's a mystery behind that game that people haven't found?
Oh yeah, there's some like clue or Yeah, something is there, like an Easter egg or something like that no one's done.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I wonder if it's one of those things where like if you rearrange all of the levels, the level design, like you take them apart like a puzzle, you can like line them up to spell Mega Man or
Oh, that'd
something.
be
It's
hilarious.
like
Actually,
something really silly. Like it's not even a big
nice.
deal, but like yeah.
Yeah.
Um one Final Fantasy actually already does this.
Mm.
So I'm just gonna kind of yoink that the streaming community and the modding community is wild,
Mhm.
where there are Final Fantasy randomizers.
Oh yeah, 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 yeah. Mhm.
So this way, it's not necessarily in a sense of you go into a dungeon and the dungeon's random, but what is random is the characters that you start with, the characters that you get. They have certain checkpoints for certain things. You start with the
Mhm.
airship right away, so you can go anywhere, and then all the bosses are scaled to your level. So like you
Oh,
could
cool.
go to halfway in the game and fight something, and it might be the second to final boss, but he's scaled to the first boss in the game,
Yeah,
which
that's
I think
cool.
is really cool. So, and you might get a random character. So people will go to places where you would get a character. All the treasure chests are random. So you could get like the Excalibur at the very beginning, depending on what
Mhm,
chests you go
mhm.
to. I think they do it for tournaments, and I think like that is just really cool and fun because I don't know how else you would do it for Final Fantasy to not just be like, oh, here's another roguelike, you know?
Yeah, it would be the exact same thing. Interesting. I like that. That's not a bad idea. Obviously Mega Man. That's one of my big ones. I think that one lends itself easily because it's
Yeah,
it's an
so
it's an
easily.
action platformer. Like it is what it is. But if
Any
I was
platformer is already there.
Yeah,
You know what
just
I
make it
mean?
random and you're done.
Yeah.
I think my bigger take on that would probably be a game like Legend of Zelda. I think it's doable, and I would give a shout out technically to the 3DS's A Link Between Worlds for kind of maybe sort of trying it with the start with any weapon you would like from this selection and just go to town. So like that's kind of cool. But I'm thinking like randomize those dungeons more, like explore that idea and
So
like let
you mean like make 50 different rooms per dungeon and then you get 13 of them,
yeah
and
yeah
then so that way like every time you play the game you go into the dungeon, it could be a completely different
yeah
layout. Is that kind
it
of what
could
you mean?
it could be different, and then like tie it to the story where like maybe there is some element that makes you have to go back to the like sand dungeon and like it's completely different, but now the game knows like, hey, if this is the fourth run you have to have all these items to get in or something like that. I think it would be kind of cool, and it could lend itself well to like the older style presentation, like 16-bit era, as opposed to the 3D games. I think it would be neat. I think it would be a neat and safe bet to try, kind of like with the Mario games, where you have the safety net of being Mario. Like people are going to buy Zelda, like try that, or make it an add-on piece that could be a unique one to do. I think that'd be fun. I would definitely try to play through that.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
Okay, and with that, I think we're going to take a quick break here, but we want to hear from you all. What would you like to see roguified, if you will? What game genre, game series do you want to see get the roguelike feature added to it? And then what are your favorite roguelike games? Why is it Hades? And let me know what other games I should play. You can follow us over on Twitter and Instagram at HeyRPGaymer. Of course, we do have our Discord too. We chat all the time about games there. And if you like what you're hearing so far, leave us a review for this podcast. Okay, we're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back.
And we're back for a middle segment where we talk about the games that we are currently playing, because we play games and games are fun and we do things that's really cool and stuff. And yeah, so
I play games
you
sometimes.
just heard Jason talk a lot, so I'm gonna go first.
Okay. Wow.
I just recorded the Dragon Quest episode with the Dragon Quest boys, and they made me miss Dragon Quest because it's been a while. So I had, how when we were talking about jobs and classes with Etrian and how I have a mental breakdown.
Yes, I remember this.
Sometimes I have that when it comes to choosing what I want to play, and then I just end up not playing anything.
Okay.
So I had that, and then I decided, you know what? I'm just gonna play Dragon Quest VII because that was one of the things that we talked about in that episode that you were not there for. And try and give it another chance, not because it's a bad game, but just because it's of course it's Dragon Quest, it's a long game, but the boys were trying to sell me on some of the things that happen on it, so I want to go back through and just pay a little more attention to the world. I think that's one of the big things I'm going to do with RPGs now in the future, is just really try to talk to NPCs and really get acclimated
the story.
to the story and the lore. And I think just as a content creator, that can really help with things in the future too, because I play a ton of games, but I think it's because I feel like I have to finish games that I'm very much so I know these people really aren't saying anything useful. But maybe taking a step back and just being but maybe just because it's not useful for the playability doesn't mean it's not useful for the overall enjoyment.
So, a lore.
So I think I'm gonna do that.
Are you running through that's the PS1 version, or are you doing the 3DS one?
I'm definitely doing the 3DS version, and that's actually a funny thing that we're talking about. So the PS1 version, because you have not played it, right?
No, I don't know.
When we were in college together, I had strep throat one week, so I took a week off of college, and I was playing it in my room. We got it. You and I got it when we were shopping one day, and it plods so badly in the beginning, but the Dragon Quest boys from the last episode were that's actually one of the beauty of the games, because it really sets the scene so much of this, because you live in this world. There's only one island, and it is a very small island, and there are no monsters, and there's nowhere else to go, and life is perfect, but there's only this one island and a small village and a castle, and that's it. And as you go, you slowly find new islands to go explore that you make appear there that aren't actually there, and then you figure out the story from there. But the PS1 version really helps set that scene of you're getting into trouble by going into this shrine and making something happen. And the 3DS version, which is the version I'm playing, they felt that beginning segment, which is a couple of hours of just talking and going and puzzle, and talking and going and puzzle, was way too long, so they expedited it, which I appreciate. But I'm actually a little bummed, because I'm maybe me on my lore journey, I'm in my I'm in my lore era, might have appreciated that.
Okay, makes sense.
Yeah. What are you playing?
Well, really intrepid listeners would have heard earlier, I actually am playing through Rogue Legacy 2. So very fitting given the topic. But yeah, I picked it up. It was on a sale for its 1 year anniversary, just a few dollars off.
Has it been out for a year already?
It's been out for a year. Yeah, already a year. So yeah, playing through that one, and I would say right off the bat, very similar to the first game, similar vibe, similar feeling, similar look. But they did add a lot of neat new stuff. So obviously there's new relics you can get, things that will change, you do fire damage now, so on and so forth. And there's new versions of the traits that you pass down. I'm trying to think of one that I got that was unique. I think one of them was I can't remember. Enemies always exploded or something like that when you hit them. It was really weird.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, there was another one that was similar to the Game Boy effect, where everything was that weird sepia color. And another unique one I thought was kind of fun. I'm not sure if it was in the first one. I might have just completely missed it, but I had that one I mentioned earlier where you couldn't see the enemies because you had bad eyesight. But then one of the relics I got was a pair of magical glasses that removed that effect. So then my character has these huge cliche nerd glasses as he's running through the dungeon. It was great. I do think that the game added another neat mechanic where you have to kind of bounce off of stuff, very similar to Shovel Knight, where he would jump off of an enemy and bounce to go to the next one,
pogoing.
Yeah, basically. It's a little finicky on the Switch, the way it works, control wise, but it works fine. And combining it with the dash mechanic, which you can air dash, gives a lot of gameplay potential for areas to go and puzzles to solve. So for example, if you remember that game, there are some rooms you go in where it's get the chest, but don't take any damage.
Or else you're locked out of it.
Or else you're locked out. Yeah, so they still do that, but it's unique in that no longer is it just like jump on platforms. You have to dash, you have to pogo, you have to do these other things. So there's some neat new elements that I'm excited to try. And then there's the typical shenanigans. Like one time there was a room like that said don't touch the spikes, but I already had the relic where like spikes did no damage, so you just ran across the room and I picked it up. Like it was fun and satisfying. You cheese it, yeah, exactly. But it's neat. And last bit, I won't spoil it. They added a lot of new character classes you can be.
Oh,
so you can still be the knight, the barbarian, the ranger, the mage. But there's a chef, there's an assassin, there's like other neat ones too. Yeah, there's other neat ones too that are really fun. So if you like Rogue Legacy 1, you'll definitely like 2. My only major complaint right now is I think it's only on Switch and Xbox. I don't think it's on PlayStation.
It's on Steam. It's on Steam.
It's on Steam for sure, on Steam. But if you're a PlayStation
Homie got
fan,
that
not
Steam
yet.
Deck.
There you go, perfect for Steam Deck. Yeah, and it's a great game. So far, so good, and I'm excited to keep playing it for probably the next couple of weeks because I won't beat it until that amount of time.
And we are back for part 2 of our episode on roguelikes, and we are going to jump on back to a game that, Jason, we literally haven't played.
It's like season 1 game.
Since season 1. We talked about survival horrors, and we played a little game called Survival Horrors, but Make It Fashion. And we came up with a very stunning game that I'm actually shocked did not... Stunning! That has not been made yet. So basically, what we're going to do is we've broken down the elements of a roguelike.
The roguelike.
So things like the premise, the setting, the characters, the villains, the weapons, any of the gimmicks. And we're going to come up with our very own roguelike. So, Jason.
Oh, boy.
If you would take the notes, and we will let the chaos begin. So
okay.
Where do you want to start? Should we start with the genre?
Oh, okay. I wanted to start with story. I feel like, okay. Wait, where do you want to start? Genre or story? What do you want? You pick.
Let's make a character. I feel like I don't remember where we started when we started the survival horror one, but I know Casey lives for our character. What was it? Sarah Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
So let's come up with a roguelike character. Maybe we can base it off of someone from.
Okay.
We could do the character's name is Shades. It's a drag queen.
Okay. Oh, okay. I like it.
Shades.
Drag
okay,
queen.
so
let me add Shadies.
Our game is called Shadies. We'll just start with that right away.
It's currently the running title, the production title is Shadies. Okay, so Shadies stars I guess is the character's name Shadies, or is that just the name of the game?
That's also that it is both.
So Shadies is a drag queen. I guess they could be undead. Do we want them to be like a dead person, or is this a live thing?
I think they could be alive.
Okay, great. Okay, I'm cool with that. So Shadies is alive. They are a drag queen, and that's where we're starting. Okay. Let's give it a story, and then we can add like the gameplay elements later. Story wise, I think Shadies is
tour.
I was gonna say they're going town to town. They are on tour, and they are trying to promote. What are they trying to promote?
Them.
Maybe. Yeah. Okay.
So maybe it's kind of like, what if it's kind of like a roguelike fighting game?
Roguelike fighting game. Okay. I got you.
But it's not actual like fighting. It's lip syncing.
It's lip syncing, yes. But there's like a life bar that you go back and forth with for each verse of the lip sync.
Yeah.
Okay.
But it's not your life bar, it's your slay meter.
The slay meter. Oh my god, yeah. Slay mama. That's what it's gonna say instead of fight. Okay, so great. So they go on tour and they get to a location, and then each stage, if you will, is like another drag queen, or is it or is it like a hater and they need to like fight off the people that are against drag?
So I thought it would be like another drag queen, but I don't necessarily think it needs to be linear, because I could see like it could be like 2v2 lip syncing,
Sure.
so like it's kind of like this organization that has created this lip sync tournament.
I see a lip sync tournament. Okay. So do we need like a plot though? So Shady's is trying to become like, I feel like the best lip syncer is too generic. They need to, aliens have maybe come down and they said, show us what you got, otherwise we're going to destroy Earth. And the Shadys thinks they are the answer, so they're trying to save all of humanity.
Well, and what if the fight for the world is the lip sync smackdown?
The lip sync, yes, I agree. That's what it should be. Okay, we're gonna add this.
So I think one of the gimmicks is, in order to get like things to craft your your garment, and your wig and stuff like that, is you go into a dungeon. And this is where like you're a drag queen and maybe you have this like party of queens. So maybe this is also a turn-based part too.
Okay.
Like a turn-based RPG where you go into it and you're fighting these monsters in this cave to get some of these upgrade materials.
Okay, wait. I mean? What if, now hear me out. What if the dungeon is actually like a thrift store and you're trying to find clothes there, and you're trying to fight off other people in the racks trying to buy things too. And then you can get
incredible.
You can get your element of the rogue-like setting where like you go into
different thrift stores.
So then they have a different layout. You're like, where's women's? And you go there, but nope, that's the bathroom. And so like you have to keep going till you find the right section, and then yes, we go from there.
No. And then like that's where some of the actual fighting can
some of your fights. Yeah, so it's not always boss fights, you got some regular fights you have to do.
So also, would it be like the roguelike part is venturing into these thrift stores, and then maybe a la Persona 3, you have like that deadline of when you have to be ready for your next lip sync?
There's a constant timer going.
Is this basically, did we just do no more heroes?
No, we're good. But you're gonna go fight the villain.
But this is basically no more heroes, right?
But no, it's not like you're not going to stop the villain. Like you're going to go because 5 p.m. that's the performance time, and so you have to like outperform the other people.
Yeah.
Wait, I have a gimmick rolling in my mind. I have a gimmick. So in your battles, you can have at the beginning just one, but you'll unlock more reveals, and the reveal will like do stunning damage or something, or it will like give someone a status effect, something like that, and people can just customize it that way. So maybe their reveal is like, you move your hood down and it's a new dress, or it could be something totally crazy, like you actually like reveal a whole new outfit like on the fly and it's all random. But I think that could be something that could be kind of fun.
See, I also thought too that like one of the procedurally generated would be like the judges and the audience. So maybe like you have to appease both to determine who the winner is, but like the judges have certain things they like and don't like, because maybe they don't like, one of the judges doesn't like reveals.
Oh, I see. So, that makes sense. So
though the audience might go wild for a reveal, the judge might be like,
okay, I got you. And I'm connecting this to a fighting game, because in Street Fighter 3 Third Strike, you at the end of each battle you have a rating system, and if you do the same cheese moves, you get like lower ratings. So if you keep doing reveals, that's bad. So you also have to mix in like dance moves and death drops and other stuff too to like keep a nice performance.
You need to sell it, and maybe that's a part of like the quest too, where maybe like you can, with what you get when you're beating up people in the thrift store, if you like beat them up and you get money, you can spend it to figure out what the judges likes and dislikes are.
I see. Yeah, that makes sense. Oh, that could be a little bit of the roguelike aspect, where like like if you pay enough, I don't know, bribe money, you always know Judge A, like, oh, they live for death
They-
drops, and so
yeah,
like
they
you always
love
need
it.
to incorporate that, and that's like the boss one's like mechanic. So that's funny.
Okay,
Oh my God, I would
so
play this.
now this is Chroma Squad.
Yeah, there you go. It's Chroma Squad.
Did you play Chroma Squad?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, I love that game.
Okay, got it. Okay, wait, we haven't talked about visuals. So in my mind, I'm thinking it's two things. So I'm thinking the fighting will switch to a 2D perspective. They could be 2.5D, it's fine, but I'm thinking it's like a 2D plane. But the actual mechanics of the fight, what would that be?
So
Like,
are you
we doing,
talking
like-
about
like-
when they're in the thrift store, or are you talking about when they're on stage? Because they're not fighting, they're lip syncing.
Exactly, but I'm thinking like, what is the player doing? Is it like a rhythm based like DDR style? Or is it a Crypt of the Necrodancer style where you just keep to the beat?
I think it would have to be something where you're like partially controlling their actual movements, and then I think it'd be it would be like a fighting game, but it'd be like a dancing fighting game, if that makes sense. Like, it's not like you're doing punches and kicks, but like, certain buttons make you move a certain way, like, and then you have certain special moves if you like Hadouken is actually twerking, and
yeah, exactly. Okay, I like it. Okay, so it's not following a specific like rhythm game mentality. It's still a fighting game, but your inputs transfer into dance moves.
Yeah, because so like
Okay.
you have to get the
Sickening.
timing right, but it's more of like, just the basic moving around will like move your character, but like the actual inputs are what, like a full circle, low punch, high kick, or something like that is how you would do a death drop. But you
I
have
see.
to have like the timing needs to be good.
Do we need like meter? Do we need like shade meter or something that is there to do all these moves, or can you just do them? Like I'm thinking like supers in Street Fighter.
So maybe when the slay meter gets full is when like it matters the most.
I see. So there
like
could be like
if you prematurely do a death drop or something like that, the audience is going wild. But if that slay meter is up because you've been working it and twerking it, then yeah.
Okay, I like it. Great. This sounds fantastic. So I have so many ideas. So like if let's say you're really twerking on the enemy and they are down to their last attempt, but you can do like some sort of Killer Instinct style ultra combo to finish it off. What would that be? Like
a finisher?
like a finishing move. Like it needs to be like
I
one
think that's
final slay.
I think that's the unique thing, though. I think like that's the thing that's unique to your play style and whatnot. And maybe that's what you spend time honing in the thrift store when you're like,
I see.
Or maybe you spend your other time like training and doing things too, because obviously you're practicing and figuring out your moves and whatnot. So
got it.
So what we're saying is this game is kind of No More Heroes, but it's kind of Street Fighter.
Kind of Street Fighter.
But it's also kind of Chroma Squad. I'm living for this game.
I'm living for this game. Okay, I like it. And then like would we bring in the aspect of the constant storytelling like Hades? So like if, for example, let's say you like lose to someone at, I don't know, a thrift store, and then like one of your squad of like friendly other queens, they like reference it like, I can't believe you lost to that hoe over in like Sporting Goods or something like that. Like, and they could just reference it.
I think it is good too, because I don't think like all the people you're necessarily competing against are bad people, because obviously they just want to stop.
Yeah, they're all united in some front.
Yeah, well, not all of them, but maybe like a part of it is like you can build relationships with some of them too.
Yeah,
I know that's something that you can do in Hades, where like there are other
and they'll come aid you.
Yeah, they'll maybe it's kind of like, hey, here's my or we're like an A-tier relationship. Here's my best lace front wig.
Oh my gosh, it's so funny. I'm just imagining like the fight or the battle, the lip sync is like a 1-on-1, and then when your like ally comes in, they're just like, girl, they just like run in on stage and just start helping, like, you scream, high heels everywhere. Okay, now that we talked about it, what are we naming this monstrosity of epicness? Shades saves the world? Slays the world?
Ooh, Shady slays the world.
Oh wait, but Shady's does sound like ladies. Maybe there's something there. Shady slays the world.
Shadies, ladies, and big titties babies. I don't know.
Oh my god, is that a thing?
No.
Okay, I was like, did I just not pick up on that? Okay, I think Shady slays the world sounds pretty good.
Yeah, I think
it's like a triple entendre.
Yeah, okay. I think that's good. I would love this. This is going to be an indie game in like a year.
Yeah, exactly. It's going to be by Hey RPGaymer Presents. We're going to eventually make your own video games. Wow, what an incredible use of words we just put together.
I'm sure we could get some of the RuPaul queens to endorse this game.
Oh,
too,
totally.
So.
Katya would be on that in an instant.
Katya will be in. She'll be like the secret.
She'll be in it. Yeah, exactly. Oh, then we could get like Boulet Brothers DLC, like not totally related, but they would be in there too for the horror theme for Halloween.
That'd be so good. Yeah, already planning the DLC content for the game.
You know, every developer's already planning the DLC.
You know, I'm a sucker for a good old microtransaction.
See, exactly. Oh my gosh. Yeah, microtransactions would be so easy. You could just get a new lipstick style for $1 and you could just throw it on there. Oh my gosh, this is so funny. Shady Slaves the World sounds like the game of the year for 2023.
Game of the year.
Yeah. Oh my god, that's really fun.
Well, Jason, I think this was soup's good. I think we had a surprisingly good conversation on.
Yeah. We actually had differing opinions on roguelikes.
Yeah. Which, I mean, I'm not saying we all agree with each other all the time, but yeah. And this game.
Shady Slaves the World. I would play it. All right, everyone. We would like to know how much you would like to pre-order Shady Slays the World. Tell us your thoughts over on Instagram and Twitter at HeyRPGaymer.
We'll start a GoFundMe.
Well, the GoFundMe is already there, right? We'll be there. As always, mention the Discord here. We love talking to everyone about games over on Discord, and I feel like every time these episodes come out, like the next day, it's always like talking about the stuff we just mentioned here on podcast. So it'll be fun. It'll be fun to hear y'all's thoughts on this. Speaking of which, if you do want to support us, we would love for you to do so. Over on patreon.com/rpgaymer, you can support us for as little as $5. Not only does this support us in the show, it gets us all kind of new stuff, like new equipment, new guests to be on our show. You also get some things too. So we're sending swag every few months over to our patrons over there, and we really appreciate all that support.
If you enjoyed listening to us today, be on the lookout for our next podcast episode, Journalism and Gaming, coming up in 2 weeks. We appreciate you all for listening and hope you had a great time. Now go out there and get gaming.